So, um, imagine realizing for a second that the things you've basically spent your entire life striving for, right?
Yeah, like your big career milestones or,
Yeah.
your savings account.
Exactly. Or, honestly, maybe even your marriage. What if those things are actually the bars of a prison that you built for yourself?
Wow. Yeah, that is a heavy thought to start with.
It really is. But welcome to today's deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a really highly provocative 2022 essay.
Right, it's by an author named Su Feng.
Yes, translated by Kinyu and edited by Peter. And the essay is titled The Road to Freedom.
And, I mean, it makes just a staggering claim right out of the gate.
It really does. It claims that no human being in the entire history of civilization has ever achieved true physical and mental freedom.
Which is wild because it basically fundamentally attacks our whole conventional understanding of, like, success and human progress.
Oh, completely. It demands that we look at the fabric of our daily lives and, well, recognize it as a carefully constructed cage.
Yeah, it's not a light read.
Definitely not. So before we get into the mechanics of how the author actually builds this argument, I do want to offer a very clear disclaimer to you, the listener.
Because we are definitely diving into some deep waters here.
We really are. We are going to be exploring some highly unconventional and, frankly, radically philosophical claims about society, government, and, the family unit.
Right, and it's super important to state that neither of us here is endorsing these viewpoints.
Exactly. We are not taking sides on any of the politically or socially charged arguments presented in this text. That's not what we do.
No, our goal today is purely to act as your guides through this material.
Right. We are just here to impartially convey and analyze these ideas exactly as they are written in the original source material. We're just, exploring the architecture of the author's argument.
Yeah, we are basically putting on our explorer hats to just map out the underlying logic the author uses to construct this deeply radical worldview.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the core premise of the text, it begins with an examination of basically the universal human drive.
Right, like why we do what we do.
Yeah. Zhufeng states that the highest realm pursued by human beings is to obtain physical and mental freedom. Like, every other goal is secondary to that pursuit.
And the essay asks us to observe, why people strive in the first place. Like, why endure grueling hours to make more money?
Right, to buy stuff.
Well, according to the text, the core motivation isn't just, accumulating paper or buying things. It's to actually purchase greater physical and mental freedom.
Oh, interesting. So it's about buying your way out of the trap.
Exactly. And, why do people subject themselves to years of really intense academic study? The ultimate purpose is to secure a position in society that grants them more autonomy.
So the essay argues that every single person who has worked hard all their life is fundamentally just fighting for this one singular objective.
Yep, physical and mental freedom. But then the text introduces its first major paradox.
Right. It asks a seemingly simple question. Have these people actually achieved physical and mental freedom at the end of all that striving?
And the author's answer is just a flat, uncompromising none.
None. Which is crazy. The text insists it does not matter if you are a president, a billionaire, an expert, a scholar, a professor, or a devout religious follower.
Yeah, none of them have achieved true freedom.
Right, because no one in those positions can simply go wherever they want, say whatever they want, or freely associate with whomever they want at all times.
And the author points to the sheer scope of that failure to reveal a pretty critical insight.
Which is?
Well, if no one can achieve this state-like, not even the individuals with the absolute most resources, wealth, and power on the planet, then individual effort is not the variable that matters.
Oh, wow. So we cannot just outwork the problem.
Exactly.
It sounds like Xu Feng is saying humanity is sort of stuck on a treadmill.
That's a great way to put it.
We think the money, the promotions, and the degrees are the control panel to turn the treadmill off.
Right. We assume if we just accumulate enough of them, we can finally step off the belt and be totally free.
But really, they are just buttons that increase the incline and the speed. We are running harder just to stay in the exact same confined space.
This raises an important question. If human effort is basically futile, what is actually operating the treadmill?
Good question. And the text shifts the blame entirely away from individual shortcomings, right?
Yeah, it argues that there are systemic structural blockades just woven into the fabric of human life.
Meaning it's functionally impossible to be free within the current framework of human society, no matter how clever you are or how you maneuver within it.
Exactly. And the essay doesn't let that just sit as some vague philosophical complaint. It gets incredibly specific about the actual mechanics of our confinement.
Yeah, it lists exactly 8 unbreakable prisons that guarantee our failure to be free.
And the list is pretty intense.
It is. It's country, money, marriage, family, kinship, government, debt, and ego.
Hearing that list out loud is honestly jarring.
It really is. I mean, some of those we can easily map to a restriction of freedom, sure.
Right, but the author uses this absolute phrase repeatedly, as long as.
Let's look at how the text enforces that absolute rule, because it's pretty strict.
Yeah, the author defines freedom in the strictest, most literal sense imaginable.
Right. So as long as there are countries, there are borders, passports, and geopolitical conflicts dictating where you can physically place your body.
Therefore, no one can be free.
And as long as there's money, your survival requires participating in a transactional system that literally dictates how you spend your waking hours.
And as long as there is government, well, you are subjected to laws and regulations you definitely did not consent to at birth.
Okay, those external structures make logical sense as limiters of total freedom. I get that.
Yeah, they are pretty straightforward.
But let's look at the internal ones. The essay includes debt and ego. Obviously, financial debt restricts choices, but the text explicitly includes debts of gratitude.
Yeah, that one is fascinating.
How does the author categorize feeling grateful to someone as a literal prison?
Well, think about the mechanics of a gratitude debt. If someone does you a massive favor, you are socially and psychologically anchored to that person.
Like you owe them.
Exactly. Your future decisions must account for repaying that invisible ledger. You might accept a job you hate or, stay in a location you really want to leave simply because you feel you owe someone.
Wow. So that social obligation within the author's strict framework is an invisible tether, literally restricting your physical and mental movement.
Precisely.
And what about ego? How is my own self-image a prison?
Ego is the mental prison of rigidity. The text categorizes ego as being stubborn and just always thinking you are right.
So being inflexible.
Yeah. If you are entirely attached to your specific identity and your specific opinions, you cannot adapt.
You're trapped.
Right. You are trapped in the endless, exhausting defense of your own self-image, which totally prevents your mind from moving freely to new perspectives.
Okay, I understand the underlying logic there.
Yeah.
But I really have to push back on the next set of factors because this is where I think anyone listening will just stop in their tracks.
The relationship stuff.
Exactly. The author includes marriage, which the text refers to as the special relationship between both sexes. And they include family, calling it the most basic production relationship in society.
And kinship, too.
Yes, kinship, the existence of parents, children, and siblings. For almost everyone, these relationships are not prisons. They are literally the fundamental meaning of life.
Yeah. It's a really hard pill to swallow.
Isn't the author defining freedom in a way that strips away the very core elements of human connection?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see the uncompromising, almost mathematical calculation the author is applying to the concept of freedom here.
Mathematical how?
Well, Yuething is not weighing the emotional warmth of a family against its restrictions. The author is solely analyzing the mechanics of autonomy. In this framework, any external tie, any dependency, no matter how emotionally cherished, is technically a chain.
So affection itself is a restriction of movement.
Precisely. I mean, if you have a child, your movements, your financial resources, and your mental energy are entirely bound to the well-being and proximity of that child.
You cannot simply wander the earth unburdened.
Exactly. If you are deeply bonded to a spouse, every major life decision has to be a compromise that accounts for their needs.
Right.
The text isn't explicitly arguing that love is malicious or bad. It is just stating a mechanical fact within its own absolute logic. These bonds make total, unhindered freedom literally impossible.
Man, it is a devastating diagnosis of the human condition.
It really is.
If we accept the text premise, we're navigating a reality where the very structures of our survival, our economy, and our deepest love are actually the iron bars of a cage.
And the author openly admits that realizing this makes people feel, quote, hopeless, desperate, and miserable.
Yeah, I can see why. So how does humanity keep going? I mean, we don't just collectively shut down.
Right. Well, the essay addresses our survival strategy directly. Because people cannot attain this true freedom in reality, the author argues we turn to religious belief.
Oh, really?
Yes, but the text frames this use of religion as purely functional. It claims people use it solely for spiritual comfort.
To make the cage feel less like a cage.
Exactly, to, as the author vividly puts it, anesthetize their fragile and sad nerves.
Religion as a spiritual anesthetic. That's wild. It doesn't cure the underlying disease of our confinement. It just numbs the pain enough so we can endure the symptoms.
Yeah, that's exactly the argument. The text argues that religion allows people to live a miserable and helpless life while clinging to hope for an afterlife or, some divine intervention.
It's a coping mechanism designed to tolerate the 8 prisons without actually ever escaping them.
Yeah. And the essay explains the exact mechanism of why we need that anesthesia in the first place.
Which is what?
It claims that no one in their right mind can actually accept the disappearance of those 8 factors. We are basically trapped by a rationality trap.
A rationality trap.
Yeah, the text describes what happens when we try to imagine a world without a country, without money, or without a family.
Oh, I bet our brains just short-circuit.
They do. Our rational minds immediately flood with what the author calls the 10,000 what-to-dos.
Meaning our survival instincts rebel against the concept of absolute freedom.
Exactly. The text lists the panicked questions that arise the moment we imagine dismantling these prisons. Like, if there is no country, who is going to protect me from invaders?
Right, or what is the point of life without parents to honor and children to raise?
Or without a government who ensures society operates safely?
And without money, how do I actually get food from the person who grows it?
It's a total panic response.
Reading that part of the essay reminded me of someone pointing out that oxygen actually causes cellular aging and decay over a long enough timeline.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's like technically true that breathing slowly ages our cells,
Right.
but if we stop breathing oxygen, we literally die in minutes.
Right, you can't just stop.
The author is pointing out the fatal flaws in systems we literally rely on for immediate survival. So what does this all mean? Because if we are paralyzed by the 10,000 what-to-dos, does the author just diagnose us with a terminal societal illness and walk away?
Not at all, actually. And the essay takes a massive structural turn right here.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, the author transitions from this state of systemic despair to a space of radical, almost jarring possibility.
Okay, I'm listening.
There is a specific philosophical quote that marks this pivot in the text. Nothing is ever impossible which not yet been realized or transformed by thinking.
So the author is suggesting that just because our current human operating system only leads to dead ends, it doesn't mean a better operating system can't be coded.
Precisely. We just can't use the existing code to write it.
Oh.
That is the exact conclusion Sufeng reaches. Because conventional human thinking, like our history, our sociology, our economics, only leads back to those panicked 10,000 what-to-dos, the author realizes the solution cannot be found by studying human history.
So where do they look?
They have to look completely outside the boundaries of normal human reality for a blueprint.
Wait, okay, we need to pause here.
Yeah,
Because the text makes an incredibly massive leap.
it really does.
We just went from a grounded, albeit very radical critique of socioeconomic and familial structures to, like, traversing alternate realities.
Yeah, it takes a hard left turn into the cosmos.
The author claims that in order to find a way for people to completely gain physical and mental freedom, they enter 20 superimposed, intersected worlds in the realm of time and space.
Yep, that's what the text says.
So for the listener trying to follow this leap, is Weifeng presenting this as a literal physical journey through alternate dimensions, or is this a profound philosophical allegory just meant to force us to think outside human history?
Well, the text actually presents it as a literal reality within the author's personal experience.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shuifeng speaks of these 20 superimposed, interconnected worlds as distinct spaces with very clear boundaries. However, whether a reader interprets this as an actual interdimensional journey or just a necessary allegorical framework, the functional purpose in the essay is exactly the same.
Which is?
The author needed a vantage point totally untainted by human societal conditioning to observe a working model of true freedom.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Out of these 20 superimposed worlds, the author identifies one specific realm called the 1,000-year world.
Right.
The essay describes this space as the closest to human life. And its defining characteristic is that the factors of country, money, marriage, family, and kinship simply do not exist.
Which is exactly what we were just saying is impossible to imagine here.
Exactly. Despite lacking all the things our rational minds tell us are necessary for survival, the text claims the entities there live a beautiful life with complete freedom of body and mind.
What's fascinating here is how the author actually handles this vision.
How so?
In most philosophical texts, an alternate utopian dimension serves as a contrast to highlight earthly flaws, or maybe as an unattainable heaven to strive toward morally.
Right, like an ideal we can never actually reach.
But Feng totally rejects that. The author looks at the thousand-year world strictly as a functional, pragmatic blueprint.
A blueprint.
Yeah. The essay literally states, I wondered if I could copy the life mode of the thousand-year world to the human world.
Wow. The author decides to run an earthly beta test of an interdimensional society.
Essentially, yes. The author took the underlying mechanics of this thousand-year world and engineered them into a brand new mode of production and life.
Just fundamentally stripping away traditional human structures.
Exactly.
But a vision is entirely useless if it only exists in a manifesto. Did Feng actually manage to build this society here on Earth?
The essay claims the answer is yes, through a project called The Second Home.
The second home.
Right. The second home is the tangible application of this philosophy, and the text provides really specific, measurable data points. This is not just a theoretical whiteboard exercise.
Okay, hit me with the data.
According to the essay, the second home life mode began operating in April 2009. And at the time the text was written in 2022, it had been running continuously for 13 years.
Wow, 13 years is a long time for a social experiment. And the author then reveals a really crucial statistic about this 13-year experiment. 95% of the people who have lived within this second home model have been happy.
Which is incredible.
For Feng, this 95% success rate is the definitive proof that defeats the 10,000 what-to-dos.
Yeah, it proves that human beings actually can survive and even thrive in a state of high freedom.
Even when the foundational pillars of marriage, traditional family, and personal finances are just completely dismantled.
It acts as the physical proof of concept. The author uses this exact data to argue that the terror we feel at losing our familiar societal structures is purely psychological conditioning.
Not a biological necessity.
Exactly.
I understand the author's triumph there, but I imagine you, listening right now, might share my immediate skepticism.
Which is totally fair.
I mean, a 95% happiness rate over 13 years is incredibly impressive. However, a deliberate community of highly motivated people who voluntarily opt into a radical lifestyle is kind of like growing a rare, delicate orchid in a highly controlled greenhouse.
Right.
You control the soil, you manage the temperature, you perfectly balance the humidity. But does the author actually believe this highly specific, radical lifestyle can survive out in the wild, across the entire globe, with all the chaotic variables of different human cultures?
The essay tackles that exact skepticism head-on, actually.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. The author asks essentially the same question. Can the partial success prove that the second home model works in the world at large?
And how do they answer that?
The author divides the answer into theoretical proof and practical evidence. Theoretically, within the internal logic of the system, it is completely flawless.
Sure, theoretically everything works.
Exactly. But practically, Feng acknowledges the burden of proof requires demonstrating that this isn't just a localized anomaly.
So how does the author attempt to prove global scalability? The essay leans heavily on the author's extensive global travels, right?
Yes.
But how does visiting different continents theoretically prove that an enclave's lifestyle can become a global baseline?
Because the author uses their geographical footprint as a massive sociological stress test.
Okay, explain that.
The text outlines decades spent living in Asia, more than 10 years in Africa, and more than 5 years in America, alongside time spent with indigenous tribes in Australia.
That's a lot of travel.
It is. But the logic here is vital. Feng isn't just listing countries for travel credibility.
Right.
By observing deeply traditional, community-based societies in Africa, alongside highly individualized modern European cultures, the author is hunting for the absolute universal human baseline.
Stripping away the regional cultural baggage to see what remains underneath.
Exactly. The author is testing if the human desire for the thousand-year world freedom is a cultural luxury or a biological universal.
That makes a lot of sense.
Furthermore, the text cites recent specific case studies. In the 5 years prior to the essay, Xuefeng claims to have engaged with over 2,000 people from Europe to understand modern Western psychology.
Wow.
They also conducted deep exchanges with other existing alternative models, specifically mentioning the Konohana family in Japan and two distinct communities in Canada.
Okay, so by taking this massive cross-section of humanity, from indigenous tribes to modern Europeans to existing communal experiments in completely different hemispheres, the author concludes that the desire for and the capacity to adapt to the second home model is universal.
Yes, it works all over the world because it appeals to the core human operating system, not just a specific cultural subset.
And that leads to the ultimate, uncompromising conclusion of the text.
It does.
The author doesn't present the second home as a quirky lifestyle alternative or a, interesting weekend retreat.
No, definitely not. The final assertion is absolute.
Yeah, if human beings are not eliminated by nature first, this second home model is the future mode of production and life for the entire planet.
It is declared the only way for humanity to obtain physical and mental freedom.
Period. So, looking at this entire wild roadmap we've covered today, it seems Xuefeng is ultimately asking us to view our most cherished social structures not as permanent facts of the universe, but as temporary, restrictive roadblocks that we have simply grown accustomed to.
That's a great summary.
Do you think that's the core takeaway for the listener trying to digest all of this?
I do. The text really forces a profound cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It demands that we stop treating the current state of society as the finish line of human evolution and instead recognize it as a deeply flawed transitional phase.
A stepping stone.
Right. The author is challenging us to realize that achieving true freedom requires the terrifying willingness to completely dismantle the familiar.
Wow. We started today's deep dive by talking about the walls of a prison
We did.
and how the scariest part might be realizing that the things we celebrate the most, our achievements, our wealth, our familial titles, might actually be the bars keeping us contained.
It's a huge perspective shift.
We've journeyed from Xuefeng's bleak realization that our traditional goals are traps. We navigated the radical leap to the interdimensional blueprint of the 1,000-year world and explored the 13-year earthly beta test of the second home that aims to rewrite human existence.
It is a text that undeniably forces you to evaluate the structural integrity of your own daily routine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so, to you, listening right now, take a moment today and look around your own life.
Yeah. Think about those 8 factors the author listed.
Exactly. Which of them, your money, your familial obligations, your citizenship, your own ego, feels like a supportive foundation under your feet?
And which of them, honestly, if you strip away what society tells you to feel and you are just totally honest with yourself, actually functions a bit like a prison right
I
now?
want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own. It builds on the core premise of Xuefeng's essay, but it turns the focus entirely inward. If this radical vision somehow came true tomorrow morning, and you woke up in a world completely stripped of your country, your bank account, your debts, and even your specific roles within your family,
Oh, wow.
without all those external labels and obligations constantly telling you who you are and what you owe, what part of you would actually be left to experience that freedom?
That is a fascinating question to leave on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will see you next time.